pretend I'm rearranging the furniture.
No. I don't like you're going to sing for it.
See, Alan, where did Allison go? Back at the back. Oh, okay. It is a lovely day. Thank you for bringing it and reminding us, though. We enjoyed it so much. Allison goes to North Texas with Byron and Joseph, and we're so glad that we're honored to have you here, really, very, very honored. And thank you again for coming all the way from Bogota. Did the rest of the family get here? Or? Oh, back here. All right. Good. Thank you for being here, all of you. Well, I saw a commercial I have to tell you about. I don't have a joke for you today, but there's something that really impressed me about a commercial that has, now I've seen it 2 or 3 times. I've talked to people about it, and no one else apparently has seen that commercial. But what it is, a guy is going along in one of those old Volkswagen vans like they used to have in the 60s, you know, where they could seat all these people, you know. And he's a man of color going along, and I think maybe his family. I was paying so much attention to the last part of the commercial because there is a car stalled out over on the road. And he looks up he's going to stop and help them. And he looks up, and it's 3 members of the Ku Klux Klan with their hoods over their head and their coats and everything. But he decides to stop and help them anyway. And so then it shows them in the next scene, the family, and apparently music is playing because the Klansmen still have their hoods on, but they're going like this, you know. And they're all driving along together. And I looked at the caption on the end of it, and it said, "The United Shades of America." And I thought, you know what? That's a wonderful thought. That's a wonderful thought, because that's what we are. And really, we are one. There are people still resisting this oneness, but that's only normal. That's only normal. I mean, it's a sign of the times, but I think we're moving in the right direction. I'm thinking of back when I was in high school, you know. If it had been integrated back then, I would have never made the track team, I can tell you that. So I escaped with a little bit. Well, my message today is about the willingness to try. Now, when I turn in the title of a message, then I have to think of something to go with it. But I don't believe you could come up with a title that I couldn't find, if I wanted to, find a Bible story that would sort of match that title. And I certainly did this time, in that I feel like that there's a scripture in Isaiah, and it's about Isaiah himself and his attitude in his day and time. So I'm going to be reading, and this is from the book in the Bible of Isaiah, the 6th chapter, and I'm picking out 3 verses here to read to you. In the first verse, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a throne, high and exalted, and the train of his robe filled the temple." And then he said, "Woe is me, I cried, I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty." And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for me?" And he said, "Here am I, Lord, send me." I don't know what spiritual condition that Isaiah was really in, but he thought it was terrible. And as you read on in Isaiah, he was saying, oh man, I'm in the midst of a people of unclean lips. In other words, a people who are all headed in the wrong direction, doing the wrong things, living in the wrong way. And so their situation became this. I don't know how well you've studied your history or how well you remember it, but in the same lifespan of Isaiah, there was Assyria, which was a company that was rising to power. And at that particular time, the king of Assyria was King Sennacherib. Well, they had just destroyed the northern kingdom of Israel. Probably those of you who know, at the end of King Solomon's reign, Israel divided into two parts, the northern half and the southern half called Judea. Well, Assyria had already taken the northern half, and this was, to give you an idea, this happened in 722 BC. It's wonderful that we have a record of it, but you know, writing was there was already an alphabet by then. It wasn't just in hieroglyphics or cuneiform, but it was actually a Phoenician type alphabet where they could spell out their words, you know. But they were destroying all the countries around them. This is Assyria. And Isaiah was living in the midst of this and felt God's voice or heard God's voice. I don't really know exactly what to say about that, but keep this in mind. In that day, here was the consciousness. If something tragic happened to you, it was like God was punishing you. I think that's carried over a lot into our modern times. That wasn't just 720 BC, was it? Well, that's today. But there's a strange thing about that. There is a thing called consequences, which is sort of built into the universe, whereas if a person goes and gets into the wrong way of life, whether it's killing people, whatever it is that's wrong, that's against the rules that we accept as the very rules of nature. When somebody's going contrary to this, there are consequences. And we call it, like in Unity, we may use the word karma. I don't know if back in the 50s when I was a Southern Baptist minister, I don't remember whether I knew what that word was, but I knew the experience. There's a difference. You don't have to know the word if the experience is real. But Isaiah did live in the midst of this. And after the northern kingdom was taken, I'll give you sort of a setting and update you a few years ahead. This is like only 713 BC. Well, they were at the door, the Assyrian armies were at the door of Judea ready to take it. And this is why that he is taking seriously this message of, whom shall I send? Who's going to go for me? Now, whatever he was in that day, this was the beginning of everything. And the best he could do would be have a willingness to try. That's the very best. I think that that's the way with all of us. I think that what we come down to is this: the difference in everything happening in most of our lives started out changing when we had a willingness to try. There's something about this willingness sort of opens the door to spiritual or universal energy, whichever you like to call it, which supports everything that we do. It's our very life. This very God energy of the universe is our very life. It's all the life there is. Now then, when there is a willingness within you, then certain doors open. It's like replanting everything that has happened. It's a beginning. And I hear your stories. I've heard so many of your stories. And all of it was about a beginning when you felt a willingness to try and experience God. Understand what God wanted for your life. Do you see the difference? If we're going and as though we're going our own pace, our own way, and we're ignoring all the signs, it's a different story when we begin to listen to the voice of God within us. Now, a comment now about the word try that I put in there. I could have just said willingness, couldn't I? But let me tell you, I'm going to explain to you why I put the word try in there. Because as I noticed very early in my experience of really trying my best and willing to discover God and what God was like in my life, well, trying is the best way to describe it, because sometimes we make mistakes. And then sometimes we're going the wrong direction with the wrong thoughts. We can be so hard on ourselves sometimes when we see a mistake and we're willing to try, but then we make a mistake. Now, what it is, I believe that Spirit doesn't take this as seriously as we do. Because sometimes we hold on and we regret a mistake. Now let me tell you about a mistake. A mistake is a single event. It's just one event. It's just one little thing that happened in time and space. But here's what regret does. Regret gives it life and makes it live on forever. An event that could have died right there on the spot, we can make it live. We have the power to make bad things just keep on living in our minds and not forgiving ourselves. Sometimes forgiving ourselves is the biggest thing we can do, and realize that we are people just trying. We're willing to try to do our very best. And sometimes when it turns out wrong, it's the voice of God redirecting us. All right. Now let's look at a willingness to listen. Do you believe that God speaks to you? That in some way, maybe not, maybe in an event, maybe, do we believe? All of us here, I believe, really believe that God is trying to get our attention. And it may seem very hard, but I'm going to tell you some illustrations of things that happened to me that made me realize how God really is trying to get my attention. But, for example, I'm going to give you... When I married real young, and we had children, and as they're growing up, they had pets. But not until I was, 1995? I don't remember how old I was then, but that's about when I got my first pet. It was a little baby border collie. Now, the thing looking back that I really, really dislike, I will never again get an animal that's that smart. I don't want a dog that can think ahead of me. But that one could. But I'll tell you what happened. Now, we had a cat, and we went to the farm and lived for a while until we sold that, and then we moved back into our house. And we brought the dog with us. Well, the very first thing that was established is Miss Kitty showed who was boss. It didn't take, and this dog is a quick study, so it didn't take long till that was established. The only thing is that the dog now would go over and eat the cat's food if I fed them both outside. So we decided to start feeding them inside. So in the morning, there was one thing for sure. Kitty was there meow, meow, meowing at the door. Well, pretty soon, and then we fed the dog outside, we fed the cat inside. Pretty soon, Tippy began making a noise, and I couldn't understand it. It was sort of started out like he was going to yawn, and then it became another strange sound. And finally, one day, it occurred to me. He thought that he had broken the code as to how to get in the house, and he was trying to meow. But there was never a time, I had that dog for 16 years, and there was never a moment that I didn't know what he wanted. I mean, he could make it so clear. And I communicated with him, and he knew what I wanted. I won't go into that anymore, but I'm going to go to another idea that's even more inanimate than an animal. I have a wonderful relation with my coffee maker at home. Now, if you think a coffee maker shouldn't be able to talk to you, should it? Now, I'm telling you the truth. This one, when everything is right, you've got the water in it, you've got the other, and you mash a little button. And there's a few little pleasant sounds that it makes when it's starting out. And then there's that silence. And then in a few minutes, there's a little gurgling sound that ends with a very soft hiccup. And you know that all is well and everything is ready to drink your coffee. Now, one day, this has been 2 or 3 years ago, I did it again last Thursday, but I forgot. Now, see, I'm the one. That's one of my big, important jobs, you know. I have all the hard stuff, you know. But I have to set up the coffee every night. That's what I do before I take my shower. And so one night I pushed the button, and I'm waiting for all the sounds. And it was a nasty sound that it made. It started out, and I'm listening, and I'm thinking, I'm saying, what has gone wrong with my coffee maker? And then it began to hiss, and steam came out in my face. And I realized what was wrong. I had forgotten to put the water in it and the grounds the night before. Now, you don't think about your coffee maker talking to you. Even my pickup talks to me. If there's something wrong, I can either feel it someplace. Now, with all this said now, and all of this communication that we can have with all of this stuff, inanimate, animate, what then is wrong with the idea that God will find a way to talk to us and let us know the direction to go? There is a willingness to try that is essential first. You may not be getting it right, but it's just that willingness to try to understand what it is that God wants with your life. Now, in the case of Isaiah, I'll see if I can give a quote. He looked out, and first thing he noticed, he's trying to straighten up everybody because we don't want Assyria to carry us off into captivity. They maim people. Now, later on, they kept people intact, like when Babylon carried off people, or the Medes and Persians. But the Assyrians were so cruel that they would like cut off a leg or an arm so that as they carried you captive, you would have very little chance of rebelling against them. Do you see the point? It wasn't a good idea, but they did it. But so Isaiah is trying to defend he's trying to, in essence, tell them what's wrong. He's found his niche in life, and that's in trying to alarm everybody to turn to God. Now, he went through the first test of willingness to listen, but then the next thing is how that each of us find a way to find our niche in life. And everyone, I don't care who you are, you would not be on this planet if there was not some God purpose for your life. In other words, something in the service of God, something that you're supposed to do and that probably no one else but you could do. Finding our niche, willingness to look and observe and find our niche in life. So it was his case. Now, let me read some of this just to show you what he was doing, trying to warn people. He was saying, "Woe to them who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, and to deprive the poor of their rights, and withhold justice from my people. Make laws." Well, this is another translation of the same thing, of the unjust laws. This is in the Method translation. And it says, "Those who make laws, who make victims." Now, of course, we don't do that in our day. That discriminate or that, we've learned a lot. I'll let you figure that one out. That'll all be up to you. But that was his niche. He was going about trying to pull everybody back in the right direction. And starting with the leaders, because here is a prophet, and they began to listen to him. In other words, people were listening. They began to wipe out the idols, which are all the handmade stuff that people worship. I think we have stuff in our life that is that way. I've told you about the man. Probably I did, I don't know. But he was poor all of his life until right at the end he had made an investment, and just in his last hours he became extremely wealthy. But he was dying. And so he asked God, said, please, please, let me carry some of this with me. And so he turned it all. God said, yes, go ahead. And he turned all that wealth into gold. And it took angels dragging that stuff to the pearly gates. And St. Peter looked out, and all that gold. And he said, you brought pavement? Okay. Well, when I think about my niche in life, Isaiah was going about and he was observing and commenting on what was wrong. My niche in life is observing and commenting on what's right. It just seems more like I was cut out to do that. And so when I look at people, I never think of what sin might have been in life. They all look all right to me. I had this experience, and I think I told it right in the very beginning, but I'm going to tell it one more time, about falling off of a building and being in a coma for approximately 2 days, a little less than 2 days. But in that time, I could hear and observe everything going on with my body, and I think I've mentioned that. But the one thing it's really hard to tell, but there was this moment where I'm conversing with Jesus, very few words, and very foolish, because see, I had left the Southern Baptist ministry, and I didn't realize how guilty I felt about that. And so my first thing in seeing a vision and knowing it was him, now it didn't look like any of the pictures. He was dark, and his hair was different, and nothing was like the pictures, but I knew who it was. And so I apologized, and I use these words because I can still remember them, even though that was 1966. I can still remember the words I used. I said, I'm so sorry that I left your gospel ministry. And the thing that I saw him looking at me like he was confused and said, you seem all right to me. Now, can you imagine having that one moment and that being the question you would ask? Looks like you would ask about anything else, but the end of the world or what, you know. But that was that was as long as the conversation went, just words, a few little words. You seem all right to me. Boy, that really helped. That really helped because you sort of go on and drop that and stop thinking about that. Okay, now, here's one of the things that we can stand for, just as Isaiah did. We can stand for justice for all. We can be on the side of whatever element you feel like is doing the best job in having justice for everybody, having equality for everybody. That's what we can do. We can be a part of that. If nothing else, just in our prayers. I'm not going to go, there's nobody in politics I would go campaign for. But on the other hand, I pray, but I pray for our highest good. I don't pray for just somebody. I've prayed for all of them individually, but I think it's real important that we put in the element of let's find a way to have justice for all. But if we're doing that, then we have to be willing to try to be a demonstration of that justice. We have to be willing to treat everyone as though we know for sure that God is there in that person, and that if we put them down, if we attack them in any way, we're really not attacking them, are we? Who are we attacking? God. That God energy is all that we're facing. So then if we're uplifting them, if we're uplifting everybody, if we have a cheery word for everyone as we meet them, no matter who they are, no matter what the situation, if we have that cheery, uplifting attitude toward people in general, this is working the right, this is the direction. This is the demonstration. There's so many ways that we can demonstrate kindness. We don't have to make a warning, I don't think. I'm sure that somebody may have that job. It wasn't mine, and I'm not sure it's the job of Unity or Harmony. But anyway, then let's look at one other thing. And this is something Isaiah discovered, but he discovered in this willingness to try to understand, he discovered who it is that's actually doing the work. What happened is that the Assyrian army came to the door. This is in like 713 BC, and they came to the very door of Judea. But there was a disease that broke out, and by the way, Isaiah had everybody praying. They didn't have that much army, but everybody was praying that God would save them, okay? So then a disease spread through the Assyrian army, and Sennacherib, their leader, decided to take them back to Nineveh, and they never showed up again. Of course, by then there were other nations that were defeating Assyria. But here is the idea, and this is what I wanted to read to you. Isaiah wrote, this is after the victory, all that we have accomplished, you, Lord, have done for us. So this is Jesus, by the way. Let me quote this one other thing while I'm thinking about it. It is the Father, Jesus talking about his miracles that he had done, all of these good works that he had done. And so he is saying, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. That's what's really happening with us. If you ever feel like taking any credit for anything good that has happened, think about that. We don't really need the credit, do we? We just need to know that what we've done is we've tried to give God in our very best way. We've been willing to try to give God the leeway, the open door of working through us. This is the way it happens. This is the way good things come to pass. This is the way the direction changes oftentimes from going the wrong way to the right way. Not just in nations, but basically individuals. That's what I'm thinking about mostly. Individuals. And so we have to try and discover that the Holy Spirit is working through us, and that we have gathered up not just our own strength, but we have gathered up the energy and the strength of God, that power that lies within us. And it is exerting ourselves and leading our lives to a higher way of existence. And it affects everything. It affects your income. It affects your job. Being of this state of mind of justice for everyone, equality for everyone. This state of mind is what picks up the world. And it starts just with us. There's no need in talking about it if we're not demonstrating it. If we're not in our daily life out there demonstrating this thing. We can do it. It's what you do best. It's what Harmony, I feel like, is all about. Emerson wrote something that great hearts send forth steadily the secret forces that incessantly draw great events. And wherever the mind of man goes, nature will accompany him no matter what the path. I think God is still saying, whom shall I send? And who will go for me? Thank you.